All right, welcome everyone. Um, I'm starting little bit earlier than I had originally planned, which was I think I tweeted out yesterday it would be around 7 p.m. Pacific time, but here we are about 2 hours early, I guess. Um, I think that's probably fine, and then I want to leave some room in case we want to play a league or so afterwards. What I'm gonna do first is review what I think most people are probably going to be interested, which is some of the Delver matchups from the Showcase Challenge. I ran into five tempo decks and played against four of them were against blue red. One of them was like the Azorius Stifle version, and I'm going to combine 4-1 against these five tempo decks, and probably should have been 5-0, but I did drop my first match of the day with a small error in hindsight, but this deck, while a little bit more forgiving than previous iterations, not probably less forgiving than other decks in general in terms of like being punished by mistakes. So, but 4-1 still good. And 3-1 overall against blue red, 1-0 against you know, blue white stifle essentially. But I'll go ahead and review those matches because I think, or at least some subset of them, because I think that's probably what the audience is looking for in preparation for. And I want to go ahead and link here the Legacy Pit open. Let me see if it. Here it is. All right. So for those of you who are playing this weekend, here's the link, or maybe last minute thinking about it. Um, First of all, I'll go ahead and bring up the list I played, which is here. Uh, the list that I currently played last night just for testing is a little bit different. Uh, Spoiler: I moved the opposition agent and the Caracas main because I wanted to get two more slots. Like I really value the sideboard slots, and especially being a non brainstorm, non force of will deck, I think every sideboard slot matters. And I think more than some of these other blue decks, literally every card in the 75 matters, and you just cannot waste slots playing suboptimal cards in my opinion because without brainstorming, without force of will, you are more punished than other decks, I think, for improper deck construction. So, but nevertheless, this is the list I played. It actually felt very good on Sunday, and I exited Sunday going 6-2. My losses were one to was to blue red, the other one was to Moon Stompy, and I teased it in my tweet just now that the tech that I have planned is to address the Moon Stompy matchup because even though my win rate against Moon Stompy is pretty good, I think there is a Grand Canyon big discrepancy in terms of play skill for that archetype when it comes to leagues and challenges compared to a premier event such as a showcase, for instance. Because I think what ends up happening is a lot of players from modern or pioneer or vintage will come to legacy, pick a deck that they're not as likely to mess up with, but have a high ceiling still. And I think Moon Stompy fits that billing and is, in my opinion, I mean, numbers don't lie. I mean, they can, but it is arguable if I'm a Moon Stompy, agent, it might be the best deck in Legacy. Like, if you look at the win rates in the last two showcase challenges, is just through the roof in terms of how it performs in terms of, and it's not like the deck has only a few pilots either, and a lot of these pilots are picking a Moon Stompy, I think, like for the first time even, from other formats, and the win rate is just like above 60%, something ridiculous like that. With the aggregate, I think there's like 10 or so pilots. I don't remember exactly, but I think there is a chance that deck might be the best deck in Legacy because comparatively speaking, Delver's win rate, I know a lot of people are gonna say, oh, a lot of inexperienced players picked it up, but I mean that's the case of Moon Stompy as well, right? Like, I think you have to keep apples to apples, but sub 50% for the event. And I think the consensus maybe third best deck in the format, which is us, uh, I think we went 54%. But then if you look at the people who were on Fiend Artisan, it was like 68%. Like in terms of like playing my list. Granted, the sample size is smaller. I don't want to get into the semantics of that too much. But what the three decks have in common are the ability to consistently beat combo, which you will see because I don't think combo players are gonna drop their deck for a big event, especially some of these specialists. So I think you have to at least have a reasonable game against combo. Doesn't mean you have to be every combo deck, but I think elves of the three is probably the weakest if I'm being fair because it's not as good as Force of Will, it's not good as Chalice of the Void. Endurances and Thoughtseize are very good, but if I'm trying to be objective, I think Moonstompy probably has a better combo matchup than Cradle Control, if you want to call it that. Now, I don't want to harp on that too much. I know people are probably just more interested in either scoping out the opponent, namely the other elf players, or trying to like learn the gameplay against for this deck. If you want to, I mean, there's still I guess 5 days to go before you pick it up potentially for the Legacy Pit. Thank you for the subscription or the follow, Siler Pot. All right, so here are my socials. If you like my content, I know I'm a little bit rushing things, but I think there is a lot to cover today, and I do want to save our payoff for the end, or at least until after we finish a few matches against Blue Red in terms of like reviewing these. Here are my matches again. Like painful loss here. I probably could have won with either a little bit of luck or if I had just been careful on turn one of game three. But I think overall, this list has felt the best it's felt against Blue Red in quite a long time. And you don't need to play some of these gimmick cards like Carpet of Flowers, which I see some people are advocating, which you only really bring in for one matchup. And don't really like that if you can avoid it, right? Like if you are struggling with Delver, then okay. But I would rather not play very narrow cards like Carpet of Flowers if you can avoid it. And I think this version has plenty of game against Blue Red, but you have to play tight. And I mean that's just unfortunately the sad reality of this deck. Like if you are thinking about whether or not to play this deck, the first question I ask is, are you confident you're going to be able to play, pretty optimally? And if the answer is no, it's probably not the deck for you. Like if I'm being honest. All right, we'll jump into it. What's going on here? All right, here we go. All right, we are on the play. This is our round one. This hand is okay. We wish I had a second land, but we're on the play and we have ramp. I'm gonna keep. So let's see what happens here. We fortunately hit a land. I think I'm gonna, proper sequencing. Lead with the Shepherd here. Play the Reclaimer. Play the Wirewood. Like that's like solid sequencing. If you're playing around Gutshot, you play the Wirewood as well before the Shepherd. I mean before the Reclaimer. All right, here we once for land. And then we play the Fiend Artisan. I think so. The one thing I will say is, I woke up half hour before this event, which was 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. my time. Okay, so the first thing is like very trivial. I just like hooked them for a million. So again, very important to win game one in this matchup. And nothing really interesting about that. Like, if you have any questions about why this is the case and how I sequence, you might want to brush up your fundamentals, or you can just DM me. I'll probably just answer. I think this is like pretty straightforward what we did. Like they didn't interact, and if you're not gonna interact with us, especially game one, we're just gonna like run you over more or less. All right. Game two. This is like pretty solid to be honest. Like you have two Kratos. Once Upon a Time needs to not miss, but you're probably not gonna miss. There is some argument there. Actually, in hindsight, I should have waited the Reclaimer, so I have the payoff. But I feel like with Cradle as my second land, so a little bit of regret there, right? Like maybe I should have led with Reclaimer, so I have a Green Sun later on. Yeah, so I think I'm living to regret that now a little bit. Again, sloppy play, these things matter, and I lose this game as a result, right? So, so I hard cast, not hard cast. I cast Snuff Out for the cheap cost, so I can actually ramp my mana. But Snuff Out again, sometimes a liability in this kind of matchup, and we didn't get there unfortunately. Yeah. All right. So that's pretty straightforward. We made a misplay. It probably mattered, like because we would have had the Green Sun for the Gris or the Endurance later on. But again, I'm not making excuses. I'm explaining why I tend not to be sharp my first round in general, and unfortunately, I got caught. Right, like oh, thanks, Wall. I appreciate that. But yeah, I didn't play the best there. I made a mistake and got caught. This is gonna be very innocuous. I mentioned this already on the thread on Twitter. Why this is a misplay, and this ends up actually costing me the match 11 turns later or 10 turns later. The mistake I made is I have the Gris in hand and I have three lands. If it was only two lands, I probably would advocate playing the way I did right now, which is just lead with Force into Ranger, which is the safe play. But because I have the third land here, I thought about it in hindsight. The correct play is actually to go Boseiju into Wirewood, and then if they waste me, so be it. Did you see Wasteland Games 1 or 2? I don't think so, but you gotta assume that they have it, right? Like they have this is Delver of Secrets, not this is not the Shredder version. But this ends up costing me the match. Like, and again, like I didn't even catch the mistake earlier in game two, but not sharp in my first match, and it ends up costing me unfortunately the match. But the reason being is if they waste me, I'm not gonna care because I have two additional land drops, and I can eventually cast the Gris. And you don't want them to waste the Cradle anyways. This is a brutal draw, the second forest, right? Well, not brutal, but like it ends up mattering, unfortunately. So they've submerged. Okay, that's fine. So here again, we're wasting mana because we're off color, right? That the mistake that I made, which pretty minor in retrospect, ends up costing me the game, because as you will unfortunately see, this Gris never gets cast. I only asked because I've seen Guardians Avatar Note Wasteland list, and the rest normally follows suit. I think these are like the very burn centric lists, but I don't think it's very common. I think if you're not gonna play Wasteland, usually these are not like Delver decks. These are like the Shredder, more mid range versions. So they're playing very aggressively because they just want to keep me off mana. They know their role is. Um, I don't think Delver can win a long game anymore. As crazy as that sounds, I think expressive iteration is kind of irrelevant now because of Fiend Artisan. All right, so again, we're just somewhat flooding out, right? They're gonna waste us here potentially, yeah. And we unfortunately it's turn 9. We have not seen either Reclaimer or Black Source yet, and we're just gonna die with this Gris in our hand. And this gets forced. Yeah. I remember this was very apparent to me, unlike the other game, because it feels bad to have Grist in your opening hand, just never get a casted, right? Like, I think we win this game probably easily if I had sequenced differently. All right, so we're just dead here to the Murktide region, and I think we again, like I said, I think we win this game easily if I'm sharp, right? And fortunately, I think the rest of the day, granted, this was a small misplay, but like in the deck like Elves, that's the difference between a win and a loss. Like sometimes against Delver, or like if you're playing like Reanimator, where you have like turn one Gristerbrand, it's not gonna matter, right? If you misplay a little bit, like these small misplays tend to be game losing. When are we going to play test the Shieldred out of the board? I know that's what. Shout out to my good friend Max Gilmore for winning the showcase challenge. I actually think Shieldred is not as good in Elves. Only be not well. I actually joked with Cyrus. So if I were to add Dark Ritual to Elves, what would it look like? But he didn't respond, so I'm not sure how I would build that yet. But we'll see. I also asked Jax. Well, I haven't asked Jax. I'll probably ask him later. But yeah, we're 0-1 to start the day. I'm like, probably a winnable match, and that I personally threw, right? Like, I'm not feeling good about this. All right, next game. Again, we already know the results. This is Delver. Right? I didn't know our opponent is on Delver, but this is like a snap key regardless, right? Well, not a snap key, but pretty good. They don't have a removal for Finhorn Elves. We go off a little bit, and they don't. So we're going to lead with Shepherd, force through the Queen Ranger, untap, and just kind of like tap out entirely. The reason why we lead with Fiend Artisan here is because we do not want them to disrupt our mana, and this is have to be killed on sight, like the Fiend Artisan. Other like if you lead with a Visionary here, they may go after the Finhorn Elves, and that's a disaster, right? Like we don't want them to disrupt. So this is a removal magnet in a good way here. Let me see. It was about time Fiend Artisan saw its time in the sun. The card is a great. I just think honestly, a lot of people when I was trying Fiend Artisan, like when I told them about it, I think the reason being is because a lot of people tried it and couldn't get it to work. And I get the skepticism, but this card is just incredible in my opinion. And Elves, I think, is the perfect shell for it because you naturally have one drops to pitch, and you have the mana, right? You have Cradle that feels like extremely scary. You know, X is 3 or X is 8, right? Or in some rare cases, X is 10, which we've done before for progenitors. Hey, Curtis, how's it going? All right, so if they have removal, they need to remove the Artisan. Like, and they use the Pyroblast here because they need to dig. It has to be Bolt, right? Like, if they don't have it, they're losing the game. And they concede it as well, yeah. So, like, we ran them over, more or less, this game. A lot of people I've noticed have said that this version is slower. I think Max Gilmore, when I was talking to him, because I told him I don't think it's slower. Like, I think there's a misconception about this deck. It's actually significantly faster, in my opinion. Yeah, Queen Ranger has been very good to go to combo with Fiend Artisan and to just smooth out opening hands where you only have one land, a Dork, and a Green Sun, right? But Max actually put it best when he said it's slower to actually, win the game. Opponent is dead at 0, right? But it's actually way faster to put your opponent in disadvantageous spot like we did there, right? Technically, the game's not like they're not dead at 0, but like they just conceded because they know the game is virtually over because I'm untapping with Artisan and it's for all intents and purposes a Dreadhorde Arcanist, right? You untap, the game is over. This has always been the nature of Legacy. Which part? Oh yeah, you mean to bury your opponent? Yeah, for sure. All right, so a little bit flooded here. I don't think I care because at least it's flooded with our best card. We're just gonna like run everything out. Like, can you answer a Fiend Artisan? Is what I'm asking. And the answer is no. You lose the game. Like this is a desperation petty theft, right? Like they don't do it, they lose the game. But they don't know we have an endurance that we're just gonna slam here, and that more or less buries them, right? Here I'm like extracting full value off the what's it called? Extracting full value off the endurance. Okay, must answer. You don't answer. I mean, they're already way behind. The game is probably already over at this point. Like, this is how fast the deck is now. And then I mean, we're just slamming bombs, right? We feel like we're playing D&T against Delver. Yeah, all right. These two games were never close. All right. Round 3, also against a Delver player. I did not know they were on Delver beforehand. And against Delver, it's very important to ramp. Unless you don't have any kind of payoff, which we do. The exception was in the first round, game 2. I like mindlessly, like, again, round 1 is my weakest round in general because I tend to be like half asleep. And I mindlessly like ramped game 2 when I shouldn't have in hindsight that we just caught right now. All right. We have Fiend Artisan. I think here there was nothing I really wanted to Artisan for, so I just slammed the other Artisan and ramped. This is actually a pretty crucial line because in the event they have another Wasteland, I do have 2 mana. All right, and then the game is over here. Like, we have an insurance Shepherd, and then we're natural order. Like, game's over. Monogram had to be on Delver. They could be on. Like, shout out to my friend also Soul Strong who had been playing elsewhere, the last few weeks on Legacy when he had a chance, but he also top aided with Moonstompy. Moonstompy put 2 pilots into the top 8, so I do think they have a legit claim to the title best deck of the format right now. Have you posted this list anywhere new? The current list for the showcase, yeah, I tweeted it out. So we're a little bit fortunate here, but to draw a second land, but that's why we play the high land draw, right? Like, we're playing 22 lands, which if you look at the Neto version, they're playing like 19, right? We have like 3 extra lands, which means we're less likely to give our opponent free wins. And here, it's of utmost important that we have to protect this Elvish Mystic at all costs. And then here, we went for it even though they held up potentially Bolt, because I felt like if I stuck the Endurance here, we probably win. Or stabilize. Why do I have Dark Depths in your board? Oh, okay. So I'll answer that a little bit, Curtis. That's actually the tech that I was referring to. So that's on my Stream Decker that I already updated. Oops. Here, counterbalance a little late. I also messed up here. I didn't need to bounce my land on the previous turn, so I'm actually sloppy a little bit, and then it doesn't end up mattering, luckily for me, but we're pretty ahead here. All right, doesn't matter. It's the third Delver match that we played. 3 in a row to start the event. And then, let's see. Actually, I'll ask chat. Does chat care about the, does chat care about the Stifle matchup that I played against Azorius in round 4? I believe that's what I played against. If not, I'll go straight to the 4th Delver match, which was round 7. All right. Looks like there's nobody clamoring for it, so I'll do another Delver matchup. This is against Sprouts, who actually beat me earlier this week, or earlier last week, in a league. But I learned from my mistakes, right? Like, strange that they didn't do anything there. Here, I sequenced the way I did because I don't want Reclaimer to die. So I was prioritizing that. That's why I sequenced Wirewood first, which is like pretty big. But they had double ball, so it didn't matter. To me, it smells like Murktide. What did we green sun for? I don't even know. Oh, I think we green sun for 1. Here, we're just building towards land drop to hardcast Cradle. The Murktide that we suspected just came down. Here, we're just like gonna run everything out, I think. There's no need to actually small misplay. I got hit ahead of myself because I tend to play pretty fast of fetching, so I have enough to activate 4 Shepherd in case they target the Shepherd with Bolt. But I actually had that activation up anyways without needing to do that. Alright, here, pretty trivial. Slam, Huff, win. Reclaimer isn't on the list you have on Stream Decker either. Okay. Here, I actually dropped game 2, unfortunately. And I think this is the Mana Screw game. Yeah. I keep this hand, but it's pretty shaky. Like, we need to hit land drops, and we did not. So here, I play the Shepherd because it's protected, and if I'm the opponent, there's blood in the water, right? You go for the kill now when your opponent is missing land drops. We know that they're gonna do this, but the problem is I cannot not do that, if that makes sense. Like, I have to draw it out. And eventually, unfortunately, they're gonna wasteland our Bayou, and we just never drew the second land. The probability, for what it's worth, there is a fail rate, but the probability of hitting the second land, given the 22 lands in our deck, is very high. But this can happen. And you just have to live with it, right? If it does. The wasteland's gonna be any moment now. Okay, this is like backbreaking, right? I think we're probably in this game, to an extent at least. It's gonna be hard to beat that rough tumble that gets recurred, regardless. So I'm not feeling too bad because I think even if we didn't stumble on lands, this is gonna be hard to beat. Like, they're on the play, they have, you know, a clock backed by counterbalance, backed by rough tumble. It's a lot to fight through, and we probably lose regardless. Reclaimer is under good cards, elves, instead of good cards, non-elves. really confused what's going on here. How's it do? Okay, I'm really confused by Curtis and Jason. I'm assuming it has something to do with Stream Decker, but I don't know the exact reference at the moment. I think this list is significant. Well, not significant. I would say game one, the classic version is probably a little bit better because sometimes you could just like kill them with the a fast kill and they just kept like a slower permission hand. I would say post board this version is probably better because you have the ability to facilitate a fast shepherd kill with reclaimer fighting cradle. Um, and I think the classic elves list is very fragile. Like it loses to a lot of singular hate pieces, if that makes sense. Whereas I think with this version, it can beat multiple pieces of hate often. And one is usually not enough. Like you have to attack the deck on multiple axes. And like Plague Engineer is like I was listening to Caleb Smith's and you know, Everyday Eternal podcast with Julian Nab, Caleb Smith, and Kai as well. And they mentioned like Plague Engineer is almost laughable against this deck, right? Because like what are you gonna kill? Like especially in a fair matchup, a lot of the acceleration gets boarded out like Heritage Druid anyways. Not so much in this latest list because like the dorks are actually pretty good, unlike Heritage Druid, but um, for what it's worth, I think Engineer is like not great against this list. If you are looking to hate out elves, it's probably not the way to go. Um, all right. Anyways, game three. The dude. Okay. The Doomsday matchup I also think is pretty good. I've seen like Ethan post like he goes has like a 90% win rate against elf players. I also think majority of elf players probably don't know how to play against Doomsday, and my win rate like I was telling Max before was like 80% against Doomsday. Like ever since I changed how I sideboarded against them about a year ago, my win rate against Doomsday is actually very high. I think that's an aberration though because I think there's a good chance I'm just outplaying some of the Doomsday pilots in my leagues, just like Ethan or Max Gilmore is probably outplaying their elf counterpart, right? Like, I think there's probably a lot of that going on. If I were to guess what the matchup really is, it's probably, in my opinion, pretty 50-50. Assuming both pilots know what's up. And the reason why I think that's the case is because I think Doomsday is slightly favored game one, but not favored post board. So, and depending on how the sideboard like is configured, like Max's list, for instance, has two opposition agents. That is actually very difficult for our deck to beat, especially if ritualed out turn one. Um, I'm not gonna go into the semantics too much, but it's somewhere depending on how the sideboards are configured between 40 and 60%. Like either side could be favored in my opinion. And I Yeah, so elves also has like these the bombs coming in, right? Like endurance, thought seize. You have like 10 cards coming in, and that's why I said elves. I think, in my personal opinion, is favored games two and three, and you probably will lose game one. Sometimes you can like steal game one, especially with the tech that we just talked about. Opposition agent being main deck and collector. You have some of these random I wins, right? Like that almost impossible for the Doomsday player to play around because like they're one ofs. And then Boseiju like targeting a land, like some of these lines that I think a lesser or less experienced Doomsday player may not be able to foresee. For instance, like I think before Boseiju became widespread and like before Doomsday players started playing around, Boseiju on land right after your pile. Like I had Assassin's Trophy dealing with Murktide region about a year ago for Eternal Weekend, and I would Assassin's Trophy their land. They would lose, right? Because they just never seen that before. I think that's like that trick is like kind of out of the bag now. It's like more known now because of Boseiju. All right, we are on the play this game, and then we led with again we led with the Reclaimer And I think the reason being is because I want to save the green sun. Like we learned from our mistake from game round one, right? Like for more payoffs. All right, so that is a pretty good top deck. Also, Reclaimer, if unanswered, wins the game. Is Depths for the Stompy matchup? It is not. So I'll Curtis. I know we're teasing the depths here in the sideboard. It's on the stream decker, but I will get into why that is there. Like here we're pretty ahead. Like we have mana. They haven't clocked us too badly yet. They have to answer the Fiend Artisan. Kind of a lucky top deck here. They Murktide us, but we're gonna rip Green Sun off the top. And then boom, take down the Murktide region, and we're like way ahead now. Like with that top deck, right? That kind of a lucky top deck. I will say that. A one of Vamp. It was fun. Okay. I know Chad's like pretty excited. I know. After this match, I promise I will talk about the Dark Depths. Why that's there. It was supposed to be a surprise, but then I realized I updated my stream decker already. And we're just like miles ahead here. Again, sequencing so important in this deck. I actually think this list is easier now for a new pilot to pick up, and that's why like three different pilots have actually like three different pilots have subscribed to my Patreon and 5-0'd on the first try. I don't think that was like remotely possible before for elves, because there are just certain things about Glimpse of Nature and just like the proper sequencing involved with Heritage Druid and Birchlow Rangers that I just think on your first league is very difficult to 5-0 with. I actually think because the way this deck is played out, namely the sequencing and some of the very deck specific skill set is no longer as relevant. Somebody with a high strong fundamentals can actually 5-0, and shout out to Punishing Waterfalls, Matt. And the order is obviously different, but I guess the order was Zenono. I don't know their first name, but he 5-0'd with this like pretty much immediately after I started playing with Fiend Artisan. Like it was like the first Fiend Artisan list. Schultz cubed. Tim Schultz also 5-0 on the first try with this list, and then so did Punishing Waterfalls. Like, I don't think it's coincidence, because I think if you've never played Elves before, this is probably the best time to do so, because the list is easier to play in my opinion. Like, if you just have strong Magic fundamentals, there's less about like these little mistakes you can make with Heritage Druid and Birchlow Rangers when glimpsing, and you can just play like clean, honest Magic, like similar to Maverick style, and just 5-0 on your first try, for instance. Yeah, so that's the other thing, right? Without Glimpse of Nature, like, you don't have to worry about, oh, when do I keep in hand? You just commit to the board, assuming you don't need to play around a sweeper, right? Like, every time now, I'm just like, forget it. Like, I'm all in. Like, I want to play all my cards. If they have the sweeper and I can't play around it, so be it, right? Like, also, shout out to Dukes. I know he's been brewing with what's it called? I know he's been brewing with Maverick with Fiend Artisan. If I had the time, I know like people have floated out the idea like Dukes and I do a stream together. I think I would definitely love to do that if it lines up, because I do think structurally the most similar deck to us in terms of construction is probably Maverick, and I think that is the deck with the highest ceiling besides maybe ours for Fiend Artisan, because you're already gonna play 4 Green Sun. You're probably gonna play, three Thalia, maybe like two Spirit of the Labyrinth, whatever, and you probably should play, 4 to 5 mana dorks. So structurally, I think it makes sense to play, 3 to 4 Fiend Artisan, probably four to be honest. I think the card is just completely messed up. Like we saw against Delver right now, their whole game plan revolves around, oh, I gotta find the removal spell, otherwise I lose, right? Like, and their whole turn is messed up just because you slam down a Fiend Artisan, and you don't even care if it lives or not, right? Because it's more like a bait a lot of times. This is Nitfic Erasure. What do you mean by erasure, Jason? Are you assuming like we just like obsolete Nitfit? Is that what you mean? Nitfit probably makes sense too because you're running a lot of dorks, though fewer from what I've seen, right? Doesn't Nitfit only run just the 4 Green Suns? Like, I guess you run Veteran Explorer, which is kind of neat, but like, yeah, I guess Nitfit probably works to be honest. The sacking matters, right, for the Veteran Explorer. Like, I would imagine that's probably fine too. And just like to find the one of like, Opposition Agent, Athalia. If you just want to stay in like white and green, like Mind Sensor is like very good. Just like these win target gain kind of cards, right? Like Fiend Artisan for Oof and Fiend Artisan for Agent has just been absolutely bananas. Like against some matchups. All right, I think we're pretty much all right. They just like killed themselves. All right, yeah. So the thing that all three of them probably have in common is they all run mana dorks. They all have fodder to pitch, and specifically with elves, I think the shell is the most broken for Artisan because of Cradle, right? Like sometimes the opponent, I don't know, I think it's extremely dangerous, but like maybe you can survive Fiend Artisan untapping, but you absolutely cannot, from my perspective, to let the elves opponent untap with Artisan because a Cradle comes down, suddenly you're staring at Endurance if you're a Delver player, you're just like miles behind. Or you're a control player and they have a Grist on the table, like what are you gonna do now, right? Like and Artisan's gonna demonic tutor every turn now with the Grist. Yeah, so the structurally, I think that those Green Sun decks with pitch fodder. So obviously the ones in the Sylvan Syndicate that don't really benefit off Artisan are like posts. I don't think like depths, green white depths really like benefits, and the reason being is they don't have the fodder to pitch, right? Like here I just have like random ones like throwaway that I can just pitch. It's actually why we went back to dorks too, because the problem with dorks before have always been what do you do if you draw a dork late? Like it's pretty bad. Like it's good game turn one, and maybe turn two, but that's about it. Also, like Spirit of the Labyrinth in Maverick is just bananas. I kind of want to run Spirit of the Labyrinth in this deck because I only have two Visionary, right? Like, who cares? Like, okay, two of my cards shut off, your whole deck shuts off, but there is no such card right now in green or black, right? Sometimes you don't have the Dork and you don't have to rid your Thali and then getting choked on mana. So the answer to that to me, Carador, is you have to play a higher door count and a higher one drop count. So I know like I was a little bit down on Mom personally in Maverick, and maybe like one safekeeper. So I actually think maybe that means Mom is more playable now because you have more just also Mom protects Artisan so you can untap with it, which is pretty big, right? And a 6 drop count in what? So I think yeah, you probably have to up the cradle count. You have to play more unfair, right? Like in Maverick. Yeah, I don't. So okay, I kind of okay. Full disclosure: the two archetypes that I look most to for inspiration in Legacy, are Green White Depths and Maverick. The reason being is because those two decks, I think structurally, are built like elves. I mean, obviously some of these cards are like way different. There's like no equivalent to like Shepherd, Wirewood, Visionary, whatever, right? Even Reclaimer, I guess like has some parallels to Night of the Reliquary, but you have to be lower to the ground, which, in my opinion, is a good thing, right? Like you want to be faster. And I think you kind of have to build with four artisan in mind, which means, especially in Maverick, where you have less one drops, that probably means playing the five dorks. I'm playing four, but Elves has way more acceleration, right? Um, and maybe the mom count is like non-zero. Before I would have said mom was unplayable, right? But maybe that means mom is playable again because you can just pitch it. Same idea with mana dorks, right? Stick an artisan, you probably win the game. Like it sounds crazy, but it's the green dread horde is what I see in artisan. All right. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead. That's the fourth Delver player we played against. Um. I want to quickly touch base just because it's funny. My round 8 opponent was very skilled DNT player, isolated system, and they jokingly said to me like, "Dang, even in try hard mode, I'm having problems beating you." And I, commented back. They beat me game 1 actually. I don't want to. The games were actually not super interesting. Maybe game 1 was because they had like removal, GTA, right? Like that's probably one of the ways you beat elves. They like Solitude my turn 1 play, STP my turn 2 play, Skyclave my turn 3 play, and then like turn 4 GTA. That's like almost unbeatable for elves in terms of like coming back from that. But I won games 2 and 3 with Progenitus, and then Isolated System said, man, I was actually trying very hard because they rebounded from 0-2 to 5-2. So they were trying to make the 0-2 into 6-2 dream. And they messaged me like, Dan, I cannot believe like I lost. And I said, honestly, I think you probably would have beat almost any other elf pilot. Like I played pretty tight against them games 2 and 3. And I think maybe a less experienced elf player would have lost game 3 for sure. Yeah, for sure, Carador. So I think what Jason is hinting at is you can't just slot into artisan. I think you have to build with it in mind. And for what it's worth, I talked to Dukes about it. I think the correct number is 4. And the card is broken in half, in my opinion. And I think similar to Elves, we had to restructure the way we built the deck. Like, obviously, I just filled it in for Glimpse, right? And initially it was fine, but the card is just so broken that you have to rebuild with it in mind. And that's why I cut the Heritage, I cut the Birchlore Rangers. I said, okay, we're just gonna play 4 dorks. I honestly almost want to play 5 because if you stick an artisan, you probably win. And if they're not killing your dorks because they're afraid of it, that's a win already, in my opinion. Because the way elves loses is because they're stuck on mana, and if they're not gonna kill your turn 1 dork because they're scared of artisan, you have an advantage strategically, right? Okay, so let me look right now on Twitter again. All right, so how is it just getting its breakout now though? I mean, it was around all the tutor targets. That's not true, actually, Eileen. Okay, I'll bring up the list. This is the list I played, which is the different than the list on Stream Decker. At the time, I mentioned this on my previous streams. At the time, Artisan was printed. Unfortunately, it got overshadowed by arguably the greatest creature we've ever seen in Legacy, and maybe all of Eternal. And that's Lurrus. Like, Companions was in that set, and unnerfed. And when I saw Fiend Artisan, I actually thought it was pretty good, but like, why am I testing Fiend Artisan when Lurrus is legal, right? Also, the idea I had at the time was, Fiend Artisan can string together, and I've done this a few times, right? Like, with enough mana, you can build your own Waterwood plus Visionary, and with enough mana on the same turn. The reason why Fiend Artisan is broken in half, in my opinion, now, is because a year later, you had Modern Horizons 2 that brought Gris. It brought Fiend Artisan's friends, right? It brought Gris and it brought Endurance. And also the printing of Opposition Agent and the printing of Plague Engineer. Actually, Plague Engineer, I think, was already legal. I don't know about Opposition Agent. But essentially, all of the friends that Fiend Artisan has came along a year later. And unfortunately, I think what happened was you have this scenario where like they weren't printed at the same time or never existed before, and people just stopped testing with it. I think. Yeah, so Modern Horizons 2 was over a year after Fiend Artisan was released. And I think people just forgot about the card. And I talked with Max Gilmore about this, and he said he actually begged me not to test Artisan. He said, "Oh, you're wasting your time." And Max Gilmore actually is one of the people that said, "I actually think Streak Mall is really good." He was like on board with all of my other innovations, right? But before the showcase qualifier, in August, he begged me not to waste my time on Fiend Artisan, and I tested it as a one up, and I told him, "You have to take my word for it. I think it's very good, or at least I want to test it, right?" And when I tested it, it was very good, and it was later on, like after I released my list after the showcase qualifier, which did not go well for other reasons, but everybody who played the list was like, Artisan's broken in half. And then immediately after, I went up from 1 to 3 copies on an emergency stream with Curran, my good, what's it called, colleague. And during that stream, I was like, oh, 3 copies is not enough. This is a 4 of. Like, this is archetype revolutionizing, right? Like, and completely rebuilt the whole deck around the card because of how good like Glimpse of Nature is cut. Just think about that for a second. That's how highly I think of Fiend Artisan. And I know some people think, oh, I'm out of my mind, whatever, right? Everybody who has played Elves before and not just looking from afar has said, oh, this card, this new version is just way better. Like after trying it compared to the Glimpse version, because you have way more keeps. Like Glimpse, you can't keep some of these hands where it's like Glimpse, Natural Order, no ramp. You can keep that with Fiend Artisan. Results also don't lie, because if you look at it, the number of 5-0s from people who are picking up the deck for the first time, granted, the deck is a little bit easier to play, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, it's unprecedented. It's pretty much impossible before with the Glimpse version. Like, I don't think you can 5-0 on the first try with the Glimpse version if you've never played Elves before. And I've seen it 3 different times already. What was I gonna say? Yes, easier to play. I think for the average player is a good thing too. Less mental fatigue. I think harder to play can be an advantage if you've already overcome that hurdle of it being difficult to play, right? Then it becomes difficult for your opponent to play. The problem is, this is also Fiend Artisan. Yeah, so Star Fox David here. Star Fox actually messaged me. I don't want to embarrass him too much, but like privately as well. And he at one point 5-0 3 times in a row with his deck, and he privately messaged me. Like, this is the strongest version of Elves I think we've ever seen, right? Because it's easier to play, and also Fiend Artisan, unlike Glimpse of Nature, plays very well with Natural Order. It plays very well with Once Upon a Time, which is completely broken, by the way. Yes. So trophy leader, or at least one of the trophy leaders here, have a Boa Vita, is absolutely right. Like, there's more very skill centric, like, very deck specific things you need to know with the Glimpse version, and especially, well, the Netto version is like mindless almost in my opinion to play, but this version, as long as you have a more macro viewpoint, it's easier to play in my opinion, and that's why I think strong pilots such as a Punishing Waterfalls, such as a like Schultz Cube, or a Zenono, or I don't know how, Zenono, right, can pick it up for the first time because they have strong fundamentals and just like 5 on the first try, right? I think the time paying off also is rewarded in this, because I think the Fiend Artisan lines, some of them are very intricate, but you're less punished if you make a mistake, if that makes sense. Speaking of which, here, shameless plug, here are my socials if you want to subscribe to Patreon. Or if money is tight and you really want to learn this deck, and part of the reason why I like having Patreon is also, I want to see how serious you are about learning this deck, right? Like, I see people who come to me, oh, I want to learn the deck, but like, then they don't follow up with that. So I don't know how serious they are. If you are serious about learning this deck and money is tight, and Patreon is $5, by the way, but just DM me and we can work something out. I've worked something out with 2 different individuals already where I give them access to my Patreon content for free, because money was an issue, and one in particular is in high school. I don't want to tell who it is or whatever, but they're a high school student. I understand. So if you are serious about learning this deck and don't want to go through Patreon, just DM me. For those who know, I'm pretty reasonable. Again, I don't want people asking me, "Oh, I want to learn the deck." I've had people flake out on me in the past, and that is one of the ways to get around that, right? Like, I don't want somebody asking me for help, and I give them all of the tools needed, and suddenly I don't see the work being put into the deck, right? Like, then you're wasting my time, you're wasting your time. Uh, I don't mind if you don't want to learn the deck. That's not a big deal, but please don't waste my time. Is the only thing, right? And I found out the people who have subscribed to Patreon have done very well because they are. I see that they're invested in the deck, right? And again, if money is an issue, just DM me. I have had two exact individuals who I have given free access to content because one is a high school student, the other person is it was a gift to them. I'll put it that way. That is not. Don't let that stop you from learning the deck. If you think Patreon is the reason, I said that as just more like a what is it called? A screening process, right? So I don't waste my time essentially. All right. All right. We will now, unless there is any questions. This matchup, by the way, here, Moon, Mono Black Helm, is almost unwinnable. I cannot believe I want like they are quad engineer, quad agents, and have Dark Ritual to get them out game one, turn one. This is kind of a miracle that I won this match. I think this is the match I want to address, and I will talk about the list now in Stream Decker. Also, what came up against that Mono Black deck is here's the list. What came up against that Mono Black deck is I actually forgot to board in the Progenitus game 3, and actually natural order for Fiend Artisan, and lo and behold, a 3/3 or whatever it was that keeps growing every turn is unbeatable for them. I essentially got like, I think 2 Artisan out, then 3 Artisan out, and playing Engineer was not enough. Like, so they actually had a very strong hand. Like, they went turn 1 Thought Seize me, took my natural order, and then I drew another one. But, like, Fiend Artisan, sorry, I didn't, yeah, so Fiend Artisan, finding more Fiend Artisan was how I won the game. This list here is slightly different than what I played in the challenge and what I actually tested last night. The big difference is I wanted to address the Moon Stompy matchup. I mentioned earlier that I think it may just be the best deck in the format, right? Like, if you look at the win rates in events that actually matter, it's like through the roof for Moon Stompy. And I mentioned this on my Discord. And here again, my Discord is free to join, but access to these Patreon specific only channel, I think there's a lot of content on there. YouTube is free, Twitter obviously is free, Patreon is $5. I've had people subscribe 15 just because I'll put it this way, they like my content enough, they just want to give me the extra $10 a month. Like, I don't want to, again, you can tell who it is once you have access, or if you're in my Discord, it's color coded, so you know who that is. Nevertheless, what was I gonna say? This is the second Sunday was the second showcase challenge in a row that we've had multiple deep runs by our deck. Granted, the previous showcase was I think it was probably August or like I don't remember when it was. How early is the $15 content? There is really no difference between 5 and 15. Besides, you have priority with $15, and probably you have my attention, to be honest. In terms of like deck reviews, like I'll do like reviews, and like I will give catered advice. I'll put it that way. If for the $10 and $15 range, for the $5 range, if I'm free, I'll answer it. Like,
or you just have to wait till I'm free, right? Like it's by priority. So you essentially have first access to me with $15 and $10 subscription, but the two challenges, the two most recent, so showcase challenge number one of season three, or showcase challenge number three of season two, which is last season, right? I qualified through the LCQ, uh, so no harm done because I. But we've had now the last two showcase challenges where Moonstompy has had the highest win rate of the popular decks and by a wide margin. And for the second showcase challenge in a row, we've had multiple elf runs that were deep into the event for the top eight, ended by Moonstompy. Like my top eight run was ended by Moonstompy. We have Josh, who's Blade of Ice. He lost to actually John Ryan Hamilton in round 7. Also ended by Moonstompy. And I thought the Moonstompy problem was behind us with Fiend Artisan being integrated because the previous showcase ran 0 Fiend Artisan. It was before it was discovered, right? I thought the Moonstompy problem was behind us, but this is the second challenge in a row we've had. In the previous challenge, I think 3 different pilots lost to Moonstompy as their second loss. So it's a problem. Granted, not as bad as before because, like I said, after incorporating Fiend Artisan, Artisan for Artisan is pretty insane against some of these Stompy decks. Because it eventually gets out of Fury range, right? It's because the really good Moonstompy players will know chalice is probably not enough. You have to pretty much curve turns 1, 2, 3, 4 again, like of bombs, right? And the L player probably cannot beat that. Or if you have a turn 1 3 drop, it's very difficult for the L player to win. Like I'm giving out secrets here, obviously, but it's a problem. And the good Moonstompy players already know this, anyways. You pretty much have to moon your elf player turn 1, or Trinisphere them turn 1, and the good I think players will know to do that. The problem with Boseiju is if they're on the play and turn 1 moon you, you cannot beat that. That's just unbeatable in my opinion. And they have like 6 moons, right? Or 8 post board. You do have 2 basic forests. There's an argument to play the third. I don't like it because the third forest is pretty much worse against every other deck. Like I don't want to have a worse card in my main deck that is specifically for one matchup and worse than every other matchup. Like not having an extra fetch is game losing. So again, I thought the Moonstompy problem was solved, and unfortunately, based on the sample size, we had 2 deep runs. I lost in the 6th round. Blade of Ice, my colleague Josh, lost in the 7th round to eventual top 8 competitor John Ryan Hamilton. No, Force of Vigor, the problem is high variance, right? Also does not beat really 3 ball. 3 balls, sometimes with the right hand, you can natural order them, but it requires a very specific hand. It has to be fetch, cradle, plus natural order. That's a lot of moving parts. Now, this says, if Curtis is still around, this has been asked, why am I suddenly playing this in the sideboard? And I tested this last night. I actually had this up my sleeve for the showcase qualifier, but I ended up not running it because there's just too many Oops players in the showcase call. I didn't have room for this plus Vandal, which is a package, right? And really, Grist is part of that as well. Actually, I don't want to move that because it's gonna mess that up. The idea is we can beat 1 lock piece. It's hard to beat 2, and especially if they're turn 1. What I'm talking about is if they go Chalice into Moon, that's kind of hard, especially with Fury backup. The idea is if my opponent is going to try to moon me, okay, this is the old depths trick from like green, white depths and lands. I'm going to Claimer or rotate for depths and then Mass Vandal your Blood Moon or Grist your Magus and create a 20/20. Now, of course, they have Dead Gone, but they have to kind of respect Allosaurus Shepherd and they kind of have to respect Elvish Reclaimer, right? Like they cannot actually allow me to untap with in my opinion, Elvis Reclaimer, because that just unlocks my entire deck. And not to mention, X4 Tribal is a major pain in the you know what for Moonstompy. Like, that's why the Moonstompy matchup is already, in my opinion, very close. Um, but again, I was probably playing or outplaying my Moonstompy opponents in leagues because for the second challenge in a row, granted, this is very different, right? This is with Fiend Artisan now, but two pilots, myself and Josh, had our top 8 run ended because of Moonstompy. And I just think we. I normally do not like to play these really narrow answers, but if they're just gonna try to moon us out of the game, I'm just gonna try. The counterplay is okay. I'm gonna make a 20-20. Chalice into just for they can't really go for 3 ball plus something else. So the thing about Force of Vigor is while good, it's high variance, right? Like sometimes it just does nothing if they go turn 1 what is it called? Turn 1 3 ball is probably one of the hardest to beat, and or turn 1 Blood Moon, right? When we're on the draw. I mean, it's also about how much sideboard space you're willing to put into your. So I agree with that, Eileen. So I for the showcase qualifier, I actually had this tech on my sleeve already. Cause I shout out to Adam Wallace, by the way. He tested this alongside with me, and we thought it was a little bit gimmicky at first, but we just wanted to make sure that we weren't overlooking something. When we tested it a week before the showcase qualifier, it was very good. He couldn't believe how good this tech was, and this was before Fiend Artisan, to keep this in mind. But we just didn't have enough room because we had to address the oops all spells players in the room, which we have a very bad matchup against. And unfortunately, 2 players qualified with that deck for the showcase qualifier. The way that we were able to make room was, and shout out to all the Mince and Boo players, like suddenly Caracas main deck is playable again or playable now because we have all these control players specifically. Shout out to Honorog, by the way, playing 4 Mince and Boo, and we have 5 ways, 9 if you count Green Sun Zenith, 13 if you count Artisan, right? Actually, Artisan, if it untaps, you're probably winning the game. But we have essentially 6 ways or 6 virtual Caracas, or 10 with Green Sun, to find Caracas to essentially blank 4 of your cards in your deck. Or Uro to even more, right? Like if you're playing Uro. So Caracas. So the awkward deck building thing that we were on was I was playing for the event the 9th fetch, but the problem with a lot of people are telling me is, man, we're flooding a lot now, and that was accurate. I was also flooding a lot because of the increased land count. This actually having relevant text now instead of just being another fetch land or Lair of the Hydra is huge for saving a sideboard slot, right? Like, and the other thing was, again, besides maybe Gaia's Cradle or maybe Green Sun Zenith or maybe even Natural Order, there are no sacred cows. And for a long time, I was telling people like I'm already down to 2 Visionary. That's how fast I think Legacy is at the moment. I tried going down to 1, but you run into some issues that's a little bit hard to explain. Such as like if the first one dies, suddenly you can't tutor for it, or if, for instance, you need to get out of like a Glacial Chasm lock for whatever reason, which I don't think is good against us for what it's worth. I think a good elf player can beat Glacial Chasm. You have the second one to dig faster, right? Like double Wirewood, double Visionary, and just like go through your deck against something like Cloud Post. And also you just have this bomb, right? In opposition agent against some of these green decks. I really wanted to find room for Agent main. Initially, I moved Agent to the sideboard because I wanted the 4th Dork. And I wanted the Queen Ranger because the Queen Ranger actually makes a lot more hands playable. I was like, man, what is the worst card? I always ask myself. I thought it was the 4th. I thought it was the 2nd Visionary. Turns out not. I tested it last night. Wasn't really what I wanted. What matchups do you lean on Agent for? It's the end game against combo, and it's also absurd against any green deck. Like the Sylvan Syndicate is pretty much tutor dot deck, right? Like it's absurd against green white depths. It's absurd against lands. It's absurd against us in the mirror. It's absurd against Cloud Post. It pretty much hoses every green deck. And insane against combo. We've been joking. It's probably going to be the Mirror Breaker for Fiendish Maverick. It is the current Mirror Breaker right now for Artisan Elves or Nightmare on Elves. Whoever has Agent probably wins, and there is some argument maybe you just have to leave Grist in because you just don't want to be cold to Agent. Yeah, it's like it almost feels like GTA. For those of you who have played GNT Mirrors in the past, like whoever gets GTA first probably wins, and same thing, right? Like whoever gets Agent first probably wins. Um, and I wanted to find room for it. The way the deck is playing out now is like we want to ramp, and they have people know the Fiend Artisan is kill on sight, so some people are holding remove because they're scared, right? Like they cannot afford Fiend Artisan to untap, which means your dorks survive. So if your dorks survive, and some of your other cards like Shepherd survive, that means your natural orders are probably live now. And if Shepherd, the thing about this card that I hate is it's awful in non-blue matchups. It's also awful in multiples. So I actually think the 4 Shepherd is the weakest card. It just like does nothing so many times. And I think blue players just overrate this card so much because they only see when it's good. They never see when it's actually awful. I think I need 2 agents for my Doomsday sideboard. Or Dark Depth sideboard. That's fair. Yeah. So like you a lot of tutoring is very good, and all these green decks, all they do now, right? The tutoring just rivals the consistency of the blue cantrips, arguably more consistent in my opinion, right? Like, who needs to draw cards when you can just straight up tutor for whatever you need? So, which is why we've moved away from Glimpse of Nature, right? And even like this is gonna look like heresy. I think Visionary is low key pretty weak. Like, and I'm only playing because control is a thing again. Like, I can see a scenario where I only play one if control is not relevant. But again, I don't want to be just like stone cold to control decks or like some of these grindy matchups. Sometimes you want like a second vision in case the first dies or something. Um, but that is more or less the tech of why we're here. I know like spoke through kind of like animated right now about how the deck has evolved. It's not that great anymore. Yeah, like I just don't think you have time anymore to like do these silly like Wirewood plus Visionary loops. Like who is giving you that kind of time aside from maybe control decks, which in my opinion it's like 70-30 in our favor. Like you should be You should be rolling your control opponents in my opinion. It's not that great anymore forever. Sure. All right. I think I guess we can run through maybe one league or a few matches. Probably people want to see this deck in action or this new list, right? I didn't pair it into Moonstone, but I do know this tech is solid based on my prior testing, right? Granted, a little not in the scope of Fiend Artisan. Oops. And it is hot. Got real worked up off this Fiend Artisan talk. Okay, X Shockwave. I think the last time I played against them, they were on Doomsday. I'm just gonna assume because this is all about learning, right? Fiend Artisan for Shieldred. The problem with Shieldred is your opponents will have removal already, right? So I'm gonna assume I don't know what my opponent is on. I will generally keep this on in the dark. Unless I know 100%. Like they were on Doomsday last time, but they could theoretically change, right? And for all intents and purposes, like this is a learning stream anyways. But yeah, that is the problem I think with Fiend Artisan for sure. I think Fiend Artisan for Grist is probably where it's at, like maybe a second Grist because it attacks on a different angle, right? Okay, Okay, they are on Doomsday, but like not many hands are beating this anyways. Also, I'm putting up my reputation against Doomsday is again being challenged here. I think on stream I'm something like, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, 10-2 or something against Doomsday. But like obviously maybe somebody is just outplaying my opponent. We will see if I can continue that winning streak against Doomsday. Uh, I think the line here actually is we hope to draw into endurance. We keep the reclaimer as pitch. Okay, not quite there. I think we play it and then hope we don't die. So a slower Doomsday hand, I think, like like lines like this. I think Artisan is very good too, right? Because you know their line. It's not that hard to figure out the Doomsday pile, like, and especially me, like, I have Doomsday like build. Granted, older iterations, but like, I can figure out the pile. All right, we're just dead. All right. Again, this is going so far how we expect, right? We are a dog game one to Doomsday, but we're boarding in like a million hate pieces. Oops, not snuff out. Snuff out, like, depending how your opponent plays, like, there is some merit for one of them. Or if they go for it like a what's it called it? Non clear the pile, so to speak. No Caracas. I think it's a little bit loose personally. Like you can get some people with it. I will mix it up when I board it in, when I don't. Because the minute they know for sure you're boarding in is when it's bad, right? And the minute they know for sure you're not is when you should board it in. Okay, let's chat. What do you think? Should we board it in now? Does chat want to see me board in a snuff out? Try to cheese a greedy pile potentially from our opponent. I think probably not in the dark. Like I will vary it. Like if I think they are playing a certain way, for instance. Actually, the Caracas we should board in. I think, in the event they. Okay, I think this hand is solid. It's turn 2 oof. Or turn 3 agent. Our opponent like has to at least respect endurance as well. It's a little bit slow, but I think it's fine. Usually the games slow down as well, and our opponent has to respect endurance. Or at least this is for testing anyways too. Oh my god. Possible we should have molded this because this is a turn 3 play. Actually, it's turn 2 oof 2, which I think is like okay. We can also just like reverse engineer their pile here and see what they do. Yeah, turn 1 is problematic for sure, but like I don't think we can just mold the Thoughtseize, right? Like argument we should mold to either Thoughtseize or Endurance, but like a good Doomsday player can probably beat Endurance if they know about it. They probably still play around Endurance, probably. it's a 4x. Like there's a good chance your elf opponent can either draw it or once upon a time or top deck it, right? And again, like if we lose, then my hopefully they don't play around endurance by forcing Green Sun. Yeah, so Green Sun is gonna be interesting here. It depends what I it depends what we reverse their engine their pile to be, because if they go for LED, then we're definitely slamming Green Sun for oof. Now if they don't go for it, then there's a couple of different things, right? Obviously the best thing here is like we top deck sorry endurance, and then we Green Sun for Allosaurus Shepherd. Some lists like to run the I don't know, they're one of them, but some lists like to run the shell dot. I think it's like pretty loose personally, but like every elf list has anywhere from 2 to 3 Boseiju, so that is just like extremely dangerous, I think. So one Oracle is gone. Cavern of Souls, Knight's Whisper. We want to see how many Force of Wills they have. Lion's Eye Diamond is gone. 1, 2, 3 petals. We're gonna look for Ideas Unbound too. Yeah, for sure. They could. Okay, so there's a petal. So I think we're just gonna go ahead and slam collector. Let's see. Do they have days? It looks like they boarded it out, and then Force of Will 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Hmm. They should not have probably played this. I mean, all right. So they have no more Lotus mana. This is gonna be interesting. They have no more Lotus mana. Yeah, it's between Visionary or Artisan, and I think Visionary in case we draw into like an Endurance. It's kind of nice that we left the Visionary in, so I think we Visionary now. Since they did what they did. Okay, so they Fatal Push. Probably dead, to be honest. And maybe it was on us for not keeping. Well, we had a turn 2 collective. I thought it was. Okay, so they went for this line. Again, I think this is like super dangerous to go for. Part of me was thinking about keeping in the Caracas because in case they do this, but we did not. Would have been relevant too because this Wirewood would have been actually it would have been the Visionary. To be fair. If we let them lose their mana, we could have the Landlord Elf in play. Oh, that's fair, Jason. That's a good point. Yeah, we should have probably waited. Yeah, that's fair. That is fair. Maybe it would have mattered. Well, we would have been able to dig one deeper. Well, let's see if it would have mattered. Right, because if this is the Masaji, then we got punished. No, didn't matter. I actually think going for Shell Dog is actually kind of dangerous, but it worked out for them here. What? What is going on? Did they just screw that up? I'm really confused. Uh, I'm trying to think what could have gone wrong. It's only one mana though. What? I'm really confused. What is going on? All right, we know potentially they could go for it. So I think we want to bring in the Caracas and bring out the Visionary. They only have one like, and the M. Oh, I know why. Oh yeah. Okay, I was gonna say yeah. It's because they don't have two attacks. It's because I'm over 19 because I never cast Thoughtseize. That's pretty hilarious. All right, so I think now that given that we have crop rotation, I think we want the Caracas, right? Like, uh, the Wirewood. Okay, do we want a Wirewood or do we want a Visionary? I think given how that kind of played out, there is argument for the Visionary because in case they just try to play around Collective or something, right? Like to dig for like a last chance miracle. Um, I think we do that. I think they will probably just not go for Emrakul again. Yeah, I mean like it's pretty low cost. Like I think this is pretty good. Like we have lands, we have Baseju, which is like relevant to like blow up their. If they try to do that nonsense again. This is the third game in a row they have turn one Dark Ritual Doomsday. Oof. Yeah. So again, I do think this matchup, like my record against Doomsday is pretty good, but again, I think that some of that is probably skewed because a lot of the wins I've had have been in leagues. I also, for what it's worth, did beat Doomsday for my win in it at Eternal Weekend, so it's not a fluke. If I were to handicap the odds, I would say it's probably anywhere from 50-50 because depending how the sideboards are built. If a Doomsday player like Ethan said they're 90% against elves, I would actually believe the number because I actually think a lot of elves players don't know how to play against this deck. All right. I think regardless we're gonna get Bayou, and then let's see what they did here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so they have 1, 2, Lotus Mana in their hand. I think they're gonna go all in on. Where's Ideas Unbound? So 1, 2, 3. Looks like they maybe have Force in hand. LED is here though, I think. Yeah. They might have gone for the whatever again. The Emrakul pile, the Shelldock Isle. Alright, only one thing here. Chain of Vapor or Petal. Alright, if we reverse engineer here, this gives them 3 mana. Can they do everything the same turn? If we take the chain, I don't think the chain matters. I think the Petal probably matters more. Like, yeah, so we're gonna blow this up and then they lose, right? I agree. Because the elf player is not pre-boarded against combo, but the sideboard is slanted to beat combo. I think there's no reason to not do it now. I think they just lose, right? Actually, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe the line would have been oof, but they did have Chain of Vapor. Okay, so we couldn't beat this. I'm trying to think if we had another line here. They could have fetched out and then Emrakul. Okay, I have to review this. We lost, but then so we're not gonna waste their time. They had a fetch in hand, so they. Okay, they play the Petal. They could have just chained our thing. I think we die anyways, regardless. But because yeah, they had the Wooded Foothills untapped. What they can do is they can just fetch the Delta comes out and they can play the Delta on their turn and we still lose, right? Because they have an Emrakul. Well, actually, no, that's not entirely true. Well, they can. It might have been the same scenario actually, where. Well, no, they can eventually just hardcast the Thassa's Oracle. So I think we lose regardless. So I think that's one thing we didn't check, right? We didn't check if Oracle was in their exile pile. All right. Anyways, I think we lose regardless because they could have just fetched, and it's the same thing. Or chain our collective. Sorry, is what I meant. With their extra mana, right? Like I think they had 1 land. Let's see. And then we just lose anyways.
So yeah, they did have the 1 mana. If we play the Collector Oof, if the Collector Oof is relevant, they just bounce it. So we lose anyways, assuming they played correctly and didn't screw up their pile. Here is the Moon Stompy matchup. So maybe we're gonna see the Dark Depths in action. We don't have a payoff. We're just gonna hope they're gonna like randomly dead guard one of our other things here. Sure. Thank you for the raid, Punishing Waterfalls. I think there's no reason to play anything else right now. Is there a reason to fetch? I guess deck thin. Yikes! Yeah, double show and tell is pretty good. I think here we're just gonna run out the artisan, and then see if they kill it. Are they okay?
You help me for like a second.
Yeah.
When you're done.
Gotta help the wife real quickly. I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for the patience. How much does this? Oh, wait. I think in case this moon ever dies. Do we want to grow the artisan? So the endurance is interesting. Shoot. Normally I would get a grist, but this is kind of actually annoying. Yeah, let's just get the grist, see what they do. I probably, in hindsight, should have just green sun for the grist. Oh man, this thing has haste too. So yeah, we just lost this for no reason. think here we can get rid of the Magus. Oh, this is actually kind of insane. I think I actually I don't want to attack because of the bugbear. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So sure. This is undestructible. That's annoying. Natural order off the top here just wins. Also, we can just start running all our creatures as well. Like, who cares, right? What's the escape? 4?
Later.
Later.
What about Lewis?
Yeah, okay. Artisan Tribal is broken against these kind of decks. Alright, we came here today to Dark Depths, our opponent, so we will see. What else is boarded out here? The Bog is bad. The Karank is ironically relevant there. Part of me wants to keep it in. Normally I would keep one Wirewood in case I need to blow multiple things up, but I think it might just be good against that version. This is pretty funny. I think we keep. The game plan post board is to just to go over your opponent. Like, don't go wide. They're not gonna let you. All right. We just want land drops or dork here. I feel like it's dork. Make them respect it. Also, we have 3 lands in hand already, and we have a Cradle. Okay. So they likely have Fury in their hand, but we're in no rush. We can natural order next turn.
So there is no reason to just run out the Fiend Artisan here to try to get 2020. I'm just gonna pass. Like, the good thing about Endurance as a matchup is we can play at flash speed. Okay. If the last two cards in their hand is Fury plus Pitch, it's not worth it to block here. Alright, I think we've won. We just gotta fade the Progenitors now. I think here we just play the Cradle. And in case it matters. There's no reason to attack. Our opponent is confused by the Dark Depths. So they did have the Fury, like we predicted. I think we played the Visionary. Bash, and they're on a 1-turn clock. Our opponent typed question mark regarding the Dark Depths. I think the only way we lose is just like random burn damage. Oh, we get the 2020. They're doing us a favor. Oh, they did it for the stream. Very props. Somebody can screenshot this. This is pretty sick. Obviously, the backup plan, if we did a natural order, was to play the Fiend Artisan to tutor for the to tutor for the Gris.
Yeah, you can feel.
This is kind of shaky. Like, crop rotation with the 4th land is almost like a more to 5. I'm gonna mull. This is a lot better. Ancient Tomb deck. Okay. Oh no. Oh, that's a disaster for us. We have like a million fetch lands. Did not expect to play against that. Yikes. That is bad. Unfortunately, we're playing against the version that is less common too. Okay, that's something at least. Like you gotta assume they have Fury. A little bit difficult to play around Fury here though. I think the line. This is awful. It might just be visionary. I feel like we have to respect Fury. I think, but we don't have the mana. We can't. I don't think we can just do nothing. So I think we just visionary and just like pretend like we have a natural order in our hand. They should Fury here if they have it. So if they don't have it, it's telegraphed. Actually, they don't have enough mana. Interesting. Oh my god. I feel like we could just walk right into the Fury. Well, we have to see. Actually, we should have played a land. That's my bad. It's actually relevant because of Reclaimer and whatnot. So they don't have it. I'm not gonna block. Oh, they didn't even attack. That's definitely wrong. Yeah, that Monka's for sure. I think we played the second. I don't think they have it. They would have done it. Oh, I messed up. I shouldn't have played the land drop because I could have tutored for Queen Ranger. Doesn't matter though, I guess. So we do have to kill that Kikijigi now. Multi-format All-Star Fable, yeah, for sure. They should be attacking. They're misplaying pretty badly. I think we misplayed too, but not as bad as they did. All right. 4, 5, 6, 7. We're short. Here, the second visionary coming in handy. And then we can kill, I think, maybe one of these, and then like we have to kill the Kikijigi. There's like no way we can let that live. We can get the Ranger untap. Yes, yes. Honestly, we did not play very clean this game, but they didn't either. Yeah, Gris is always good. They're gonna start copying stuff. Like I forgot they had the second one. Interesting. They're attacking now. They chose the wrong time to be honest to attack. Like this is now not the right time. Yeah. Like they should have been attacking all those other turns, and they picked the wrong one turn. They probably should not be attacking. All right. Anyways, well. Actually, let me see. Blood Sun, interesting, works against the Dark Depths too, so we're gonna try it. But Juka Ball can come out. I think Caracas can come out. I think Agent can come out, and then go down to Water and Waterwood in case it matters. By the way, the previous match was my first sanctioned 2020 in sanctioned play because against Adam when I tested the tech, of course it was just him and me. Not enough. One is a lot of Shriekmaw already for what it's worth. HC Fox because you have 9 of them virtually, or 5 of them, I guess. I think. What do we want to do here? Probably once. Save the fetch line in case it matters. Reclaimer is pretty damn good. Need 3 Shriekmaw. Argument to be made. We keep another land, but otherwise we're gonna be a little bit flooded. The Bloodsun is here is kind of bad. What the heck? Okay? I wasn't expecting that. Gris is always good to. Interesting. Everybody. I think we have to do it now. Well, we know that we can fetch this actually. It's probably safe. They're probably gonna fling the thing at one of our things. It's gonna be annoying, but what can you do? We take 4. They're gonna probably kill the Reclaimer. I would guess. Maybe. I mean, there's chances the Dork, but I would think Reclaimer. They draw 4, and if they don't kill the Finhorn, I think we're okay, and we just have a Progenitors. All right, they are keeping us off natural order. Chalice, sure. I think we do that. I'm gonna take the Minsabu off. I think I'm gonna tick up the Gris. Hey, thanks, Justin. Appreciate the raid. For those of you who are coming, we are
testing the Dark Depths sideboard tech against these moon decks. Our opponent gratuitously killed their own Magus last game to. I mean, we were already gonna win with Progenitus, but allowed us to attack with a 2020. Sure. It's actually annoying, but. No blocks. We don't have lethal, and we can take the Mince and Boot off the board, which is nice here. Argument to be made. Well, I think we take the Progenitus. I don't think we get greedy here. Like, I was thinking about lethal next turn, but we're like missing a few pieces. Also, if Justin's still here and didn't hear me earlier, thank you for the raid. The first part of our stream, we covered we went over four blue-red matchups from my showcase earlier. I guess this makes sense if people like the this punishing fire / Mince and Boo version. Oh no, sorry, this to add that. Ooh, maybe they get an E-bridge. I actually did not think they were playing this, but I guess it's not out of the realm. They almost certainly get bridge, I would imagine. Zero and orb. Okay, so that keeps them above 20. Potentially. Right, wait, from 2 Progenitus attacks. So I think given that they have I think we have to take the Karn off the board. You better not be coming for my world. Yeah, we have to kill the Karn. It's just whether we want to do anything else. I think we want to see. Cradle's pretty good. Yeah. This is Tarmogoyf Tribal, right? Like, Sir Mix-a-Lot would be proud right now, for those who get the reference. I think their hand is probably like a bunch of burn, and they're trying to get to see how they can do 11 damage.
Also, there is just there is a chance we just straight up win too. We draw fetch land next. Sure. Sure. Nope, we don't want to do anything. Fetch land wins the game. That's pretty damn good too. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is let me make sure I do this correctly. I can get a arbor, untap. Yeah, that's first. Get an arbor first. Yeah, it's wombo combo time. I can untap, get a that if I untap, get a 13. We can pitch the arbor here. Just to grow. I guess it doesn't matter. Do not miss the opportunity to get the It's a lot of damage. I was trying to optimize it, but it's not even worth it, right? Our opponent's dead. 26. I guess they can gain life, but it's a lot of damage. I didn't even count. 23, 33 damage. I guess they can stack their whole board and maybe live, but they're more or less dead. As once wise people said before me, math is for blockers. F6. Alright, we just beat 2 Moonstompy players in a row. Didn't even need the Dark Depths, but it's nice to have, right? I think we could have done it in this match, but we didn't need to. We had natural order anyways. Our round 1 opponent was Doomsday, who had turn 1 Dark Ritual Doomsday all 3 games. So, can happen, I guess, but pretty low odds. It's roughly 16%. And they had it 3 games. I'm gonna get water. I'm gonna pause this for a second. Here's my list again. Obviously, the thing that's gonna catch people's eyes is the Dark Depths. That's a anti-Moonstompy tech. Also works against Painter. For sure. That should have been Ensnaring Bridge, unless they didn't have it for some reason. I'm gonna get water and use the rest. I'll be right back.
We haven't needed the dark death. Well, it would have been helpful that second game if we didn't have natural order. Hey, High Star, how's it going? Um, I do think also like we saw like obviously the trophy leader or pretty high up there, I guess. Um, I do not think our third round opponent played very well. Like that's suffice it to say. Here we didn't need it, but I think extra insurance against Moonstompy is probably relevant because I think in addition to Moonstompy, if Painter is popular too, they would no doubt bring in Magus against you as well. And I think that tech is probably pretty good. It's game winning good, right? Like you don't have to walk into these Fury decks like and just pray they don't have it, right? Like sometimes all you have is those like Dorks and Fiend Artisan, and they're holding the removal spell for the Fiend Artisan because they're calling your bluff. You don't have natural order, right? Those are the games that are hard if you don't actually have the natural order and they call your bluff that you don't have it. Because you have to walk the Fiend Artisan into removal. Now, if they do respect you, then it's Fiend Artisan, it gets turned on, right? But the problem is they can play one of two ways, right? They can dare you to have the natural order, which is like, 30-ish%, or they pop. The other thing, the way you can beat that deck too is I'm just essentially increasing the number of permutations, right? Because you're never gonna beat some of these like turn one Blood Moon and you just like staring your hand and fetches, right? You can't beat those Moon Stompy starts. So I want to make sure I can beat every single medium to below average hand that they have, for instance. All right. Also, those of you coming in from Justin's stream, here's my what's it called? Here's my socials. I think we're playing against Painter, so it could be another Dark Depths matchup. Actually, last time I played against them, they were on Infect, so who knows? Land would be nice. Ugh, I think it happened to us finally. Yikes. We could Endurance and just like Lotus Petal. I just feel that's so bad. Well, we have a second once. I think we do it actually. Oh my god, this feels so bad. They're most likely playing some kind of combo deck, so I don't think we can just like not do anything. If it was a slower deck, maybe. The fact that the Once Upon a Time is also dead, it doesn't make I don't feel as bad about doing that. Okay, we drew the land, which is nice. Also, it just accelerates us, right? We just use it as a Lotus Petal. I think that's fine. I think we want the Bayou. Like, we don't have turn 2 Artisan here. Also, Plague Engineer, if we played in the sideboard, would be relevant in this matchup. Elf Mirror detected. Artisan should have been an elf. How much better it would be that Wirewood can protect it. Sure. They attack here. I think there's a chance we just don't block. I don't know if we're winning any kind of... Oh, God. Maybe they just have the Berserk then.
feel it's gotta be this. That's pretty good, actually. I legit think it would be banned if it was an elf. I don't know. Like nobody played it like for a long time for what it's worth. All right, I'm gonna bash with all here. Actually, hold on. It's grist time. The reason why I'm doing this is 'cause I need the mana for the cradle. Like we're just so far behind, right? Like essentially missing on the thing on the Once Upon a Time. Very strange scale up attack from an opponent though. But yeah, if Fiend Artisan was an elf, that would just be perfect. Maybe take the grist off the board here. I don't know. I'm definitely blocking the. Well, maybe not. We'll see. Let's see who they are. They going grist or are they going? So they pump. This dies anyways. I feel like there's no reason to block. Yeah, that's what I suspected. That's fine. We actually are up a card. Slowly getting back into this game, actually. So 4/5 mana. We have lethal next turn. I think we just want to avoid dying here. Oh, actually, I messed up. Shoot. The endurance is in the yard. Shoot. That's bad. Okay, I guess I get visionary here. Not ideal. They daze us. They kind of have to respect this too, because the artisan's gonna hoof pretty soon. Like they don't know it's in our hand. Maybe forces. I don't know. We screwed up though. I forgot what the endurance was. Like they have to count, right? That's 5 mana. I have lethal next turn. That's correct. I mean, if they have days or force, they have to do it. Unless they don't see the line that I can lethal them next turn. Even Shepherd is lethal next turn. Okay. Ah, man. We screwed up though. Like, we would have extra mana, and I could have just straight up got the Shepherd, but now there's like up the chance. Like we. See if they attack with both. If they pump here, their pumps are in terms of 4. I don't think it matters. This goes to 3. I don't think I'm blocking here. It needs 2 pumps regardless. Oh my god, that's annoying. Okay, so that's the good thing, right? They gave us the benefit of the doubt that we can just hoof here. So we probably got away with one that we probably should have lost, or it should have been closer. I have to think about what the line there was. Possible we still have it, but it's hard to say. All right, Snuff Out is absolutely broken in this matchup. I will not be playing the Legacy Pit. I am streaming only today for the Legacy Pit in case people want to play this deck or spy on this deck, essentially, right? So I'm doing the everybody's service. Actually, here it is, my sideboard guide that's for Patreon only, but momentarily available. Honestly, like, I'm pretty good about sharing regardless. Even though I have Patreon, like if you ask me, I'll pretty much answer the question. Looks like we bored out 3 Wirewood. Collector Oof has no text in this matchup. Neither is Opposition Agent. Endurance is really good. Looks like we bored in C's. And my dog is going crazy right now. We have an extra card somewhere. Snuff Out. Opposition Agent is out. Collector Oof. Gris is too slow. Actually, Gris, I feel like might be okay. I actually kind of like Gris to deal with Blighted Agent, so maybe it's okay. The problem with Gris, though, is Opposition Agent hits Crop Rot for Nexus. The problem I see with Gris in this kind of matchup is it's a little bit slow, and if you're gonna tick down, like you don't have the resources to win, right? Like, yeah, I'm gonna trust my gut. Well, tutorable removal though for a Blighted Agent. Is that a Dark Depths? It is a Dark Depths. All right, let's see. Do we have anything cuttable still? We have 1 Visionary, 1 Wirewood. Yeah, let's try it without Gris. I'm gonna trust my predetermined instincts. That is too slow. No removal. No C's. Not the well. We have a Basagi that could be relevant, but if we don't draw a land here, then it's a problem. Yeah, depth is for the moon matchup and the painter matchup specifically. All right. I think we leave with that. Actually, arguments to be made. Well, I think this is fine. We may or may not block here. I feel like we don't. What do I anticipate the meta would be at Legacy Pit? I have actually never played at the Legacy Pit. I suspect, based on everything I've heard, a lot of very fairish decks or green decks, like I think a lot of Delver, a lot of DNT, a lot of lands, and probably a lot of green white depths. And I think the combo deck of choice is probably Reanimator. That is my guess. I don't think there's gonna be too much combo. I think there will. I think the combo will be like these kind of A plus B combo decks, like easier to play. I think it's gonna be like Reanimator, possibly Show and Tell. I think sprinkle in maybe a few Doomsday players, but I don't think too much Storm. I think there will be a lot of green white depths that try and prey on Delver. I think there will be not that many elves. I don't think there will be. I think there will be a lot of Delver and a lot of DNT. Those tend to be like very common paper metagames. Oof. I think what I'm gonna do. This is like tough. Definitely do that. I'm just like curious on what the line is here. Do we just like? I think we just play everything out. Is back to basics a good answer to depths? That is a good question that unfortunately I do not know the answer to. I feel like probably, but I feel like it was too slow, right? It will definitely have more Den of the Bugbear, I believe. I do not believe it will have any Lair of the Hydra. That is my guess. Alright. Alright, I think we just have a kill. It doesn't look like they have anything. Possible Submerge. I think we have no choice but to block here. I tried to mess around with Phenars and Leon. It does okay against constant removal, but maybe something like Season Power is a Valley third color. Upside on that side, plenty of token. Yeah. So the thing is about Fiend Artisan is like you don't want to play bad cards like for Fiend Artisan. You want to already play cards you would otherwise play. If that makes sense. All right. We're just not gonna respect it. Like, not to mention we don't have lethal otherwise. If they have the submerged, then they have it. They may pump their eye agent and block, and maybe that's enough to stave off lethal. But like, I don't think our hand dictates go right. Like, I don't think we're waiting another turn. We could just die to this agent. Okay, so we got there. The other thing is the reason why I mentioned too the Artisan Shell is like a Green Sun Zenith deck is because your green fetch lands represent a creature almost all the time, right? Like you had Dryad Arbor to pitch to Artisan is like one of the reasons why I think Maverick and I think why I agree Nitfig is probably like a reasonable option to fit Artisan. All right, one more match. I'm not gonna play 2 leagues today because I am kind of tired. I don't want to be like exhaust myself. I also think like This is like a pretty good showing for us already, regardless of how the last game goes. We gotta make a 2020 one time, so that was kind of cool. If you don't think you need the extra help against Moonstomp, you just obviously cut the Dark Depths. Pretty sure Fiend Artisan is just too slow at Maverick. I feel like it's pretty good, but you probably need more Kratos. Like, what's it called? Like Jason mentioned earlier. Like, one of the reasons why Fiend Artisan was broken in Matt's deck and in my deck is because Kratos is completely broken. Alright, I hate this matchup. Ugh. We're probably going to get 0-2 here. They're playing the Echo of Aeons, and we just cannot really stop that deck. Artisan probably too slow here, too. I think we're going to mull in. That's fair. I think we keep... I think Visionary is probably too slow. Everything else looks pretty good. Yeah, I hate this matchup. I don't think it's really realistic for us to win. And especially he knows we're on elves. It's just a nightmare. Pun not intended. Like we cannot stop them. Even like game 1 is an auto loss. Game 2 is really hard too because we're pretty all in on certain cards. Okay, we're just getting. Shoot. Okay, they. Okay, I messed up. We're gonna. I don't know if they have force or not. I feel like they maybe do. I don't know if they do, but we're gonna force that through and then try to shut off their deck. Shredder? It seems a little random. The bog, ironically relevant now. You got to be kidding me. Okay, so we screwed up the sequencing. Like, my fault for not bogging them second. That's on me, actually. That is on me. Okay, I think they're dead. We punted, but I think they're dead now. Yeah, all right, they know what's up. They're a very good player, by the way, so they know what's up. We stole game 1 here. I don't think we're supposed to win game 1, especially given that they know what we're on. Snuff Out absolutely broken in this matchup, especially since they're playing Shredder to try to shore up like anything with Force so well. I think we want Seize. Vandal could be good. Leyline is probably good. I don't know their exact list. I guess, yeah, I don't know their exact list. I don't think this stuff matters. This definitely doesn't matter. The bog ironically mattered there, but not supposed to. I'm trying to think if we actually want the bog. The Grist to take down a Karn could be relevant. It's probably better than a Bog, to be honest. Endurance does not do anything in this matchup. I don't think they like. I mean, I thought. Okay, let's look at their list. It's posted there. What do they have? It looks like endurance does not do anything. Don't overthink. Keep versatile on the draw. They just keep going turn 0 Twister. Yeah, that's probably true. HC Fox. So, I think the Grist is randomly potentially good. The Shriek Mob, probably not. Like if it's sorcery speed just like Grist, but Grist can. Oh, this is like pretty nuts. Leyline actually might not be relevant if they're not playing like Emery or any of that other stuff. I think we might just get twisted here. They're not playing around trap. Sure. Not good. Not good. We're probably dead. Like, this is just kind of too good of a start. I think we take the... Okay, the thing is, like, do we want to draw any of that? Oh my god, we have the bug. Oh my god, the Once Upon a Time resizing window bug. One second as I... It's insane to me this is not fixed yet. This like happens all the time. Oh my god, what is going on? We stole game 1, Sadra, but unfortunately, this is... We had the Once Upon a Time resizing bug right now. Gotta go slow. Do we want anything? I don't think we want the Fiend Artisan here. I think we just grow our stuff. The natural order here doesn't matter. I think we don't really want to draw any of that stuff, so I'll take the Bayou. We are 3-1 in this league. The ley line is bad here. Yeah, I think I'm not gonna bring in ley line. It's just so bad. I mean, it could get them, but like they have to have like multiple cards, right?
Possible, Eli. Possible. They have the stupid sovereign though, unfortunately. Oh wow, what a card to draw right now. I think we seize first, see what they have for full information. Hull breacher, hull breacher. So all the same effects essentially. I thought they could do like sovereign us last turn. I wonder why they didn't do it. Snuff out is for the hull breacher. Oh, they can Otawara us here too. That is obnoxious. Wonder why. Maybe they sovereign here. I don't know. We'll see. I guess they don't need to, right? With Otawara in hand. Well, there's that. All right, what do they have here? Pair of Narsets. What do if we didn't board in the ley line? We would have a Wirewood and a Visionary, so kind of useless anyway. I guess we would have two Wirewood, kind of useless. Let me think. Weak. The problem is they can do everything potentially. Well, they're missing one half of the combo, right? Like they have the Narset and then the Sky Sovereign. I think just in case we. God damn it. Let me see how we boarded. We have a Gris that could matter just to ramp. We can also take down the LED. We have 6 mana, 7, 8, 9. Wait, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Quirion into Wirewood to pump Artisan and attack. That's reasonable. Yeah, I think I kind of like that. Is there a Wirewood left? No, there's not. So I think we just pass here. Oh, we. Oh shoot! I messed up. Oh, it's flying anyway, so it doesn't matter. I didn't think about that. Like we could have killed the. Oh, we threw this game. All right, that's my fault. I think Leyline's really bad, but no, we had the out like Mass Vandal. We just didn't. I didn't think that they would do that. It didn't occur to me. So I think we do that. All right, we threw that game. I'm not like. We don't kill that turn, so they might have just killed us anyways. There's that argument. Days Undoing or the Hope Breacher? What do we care about actually here? Yeah, maybe the Karn. No, that the Hull Breacher is gonna kill us, so it has to be one of these two, right? That doesn't make any sense, HC Fox. I don't think it's Chromox either. I think we take the Hull Breacher. Well, if they undo, well, ugh. They can still wheel, yeah. I don't. We hope they whiff, maybe. That's super obnoxious. Yeah, maybe it's the Undoing. Problem is the Karn is the problem. I don't think we are allowed to let them wheel. I want to take the Hull Breacher, to be honest. So we can attack the Karn if need be. I'm gonna do that. Hey, Answer Key Game, how's it going? And just hope they don't turn one us. Dang, 2 soul lands. Jesus.
they sovereign the collector oof. We might just have oof. Well, we don't. Well, we're short actually. Ooh, interesting. Okay, that makes sense actually. We're gonna exile this. Now we can vandal the ship and kill Karn. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think the only risk is I think we can grist here. Done. We don't accidentally. I think we don't take the risk of well maybe. Okay, they forced. That's fine. Now. I think they lose now. All right. I apologize to my opponent right now. I think for slow play, I was guilty of slow play this game for sure. All right, we went 4-1, and we won probably an almost impossible matchup. Otherwise, I think we definitely misboarded. Like I looked at my sideboard map, and Leyline wasn't good. Again, but granted, the sideboard map that I have is not really for their version. I really think referring to GB Fire or Nightmare as just elves is really misleading because it is really so different. Yeah, for sure, Sadra. I think our loss today was to Doomsday, and they had turn one Dark Ritual, Doomsday, all three games. I think we're okay with this, right? But yeah, pretty happy overall. Pretty strong performance. We beat. Granted, one was like misplaying like crazy, but we beat two Moonstompy players. And here's the deck list again. The sideboard tech is the Dark Depths to beat Moonstompy. It or Painter, right? Like those tend to be the Fury, Magus, Soulland like shell, so to speak. Yes, Snuff Out is completely bonkers. Going back to the previous comment, like I play Snuff Out, and I think actually in this list, Snuff Out is arguably better than STP for us because the matches where we really want Snuff Out, there's a misconception out there. This is for Delver. That's actually not true at all, and it's somewhat of a liability against Delver. Snuff Out is really for creature combo. Like we are a little bit soft to like Cephalid Breakfast, like Food Chain Goblins is not a matchup I really want to see. Um, what else? I think Infect, even though we beat it, like not really a matchup I want to see. Uh, I think they're very swingy at high variance is what I mean. No, actually, it does not. Techno Mage. The reason why is because it's a Planeswalker. I can just kill it. Like I've had many people turn one Ashiok me, and then I kill them later on because I eventually tick it down. Right? Like unless you have Ashiok backed by a defense like a creature, Ashiok is typically not good enough.
Like if you have a turn 1 on the play Dark Ritual, and I just happen to be staring off fetch lands, then sure. But like for the most part, I don't think it's good against me. If you're thinking about playing that, like in these blue decks, right? Like, I do not think it's good. The graveyard hate is like relevant to an extent, like, but the reason why Artisan and Reclaim are good is because they do things even in presence of graveyard hate, right? Like, it's like really dicey in my opinion to bring in non-flexible graveyard hate against elves. Yeah, Vandal was just nuts there, right? It won the game because our opponent like tapped out for force on the green sun. Okay, so anybody have any questions? I know the contentious card is probably the Dark Depths. The way I look at it is it's one slot to potentially fight against, at least on, if you're looking at numbers, the best deck right now in Legacy, which is the Moon Stompy deck. And we have had multiple top 8 runs killed now as a result of Moon Stompy. So I think we have to address the matchup. It conveniently but also addresses Painter. And if it was just Moon Stompy by itself, maybe not worth it because of the Mass Vandal. But I think it's one slot to address 2 matchups, right? And roughly 10% of the metagame. If I were to play something other than Depths there, what would I look at? People can probably guess what I would play. More combo hate. Like, I would probably play like a Mind Break Trap or Force of Vigor, right? Know anyone I can go watch? I would watch Francisco Pollitt's Siler Pot. I've liked his Amulet videos a lot. So I would recommend that. Totally not just trying to avoid spending 65 or anything. You're talking about $65 on the Dark Depths. I don't think it's a big deal. I also think if it's for paper play, there are probably not as many strong Moon Stompy players. It just so happens for online, there's a lot of grinders from, and I say that nicely by the way, from other formats who pick that up and do really well with it. I do not think that's going to be the issue on paper play. So I think you probably don't even need it. Thank you, Siler. I appreciate that. And also, if you like my content, here are my socials again. Excuse me, my voice is kind of hoarse right now. Who should we raid? I guess we can raid either Caleb. There's EDH, Pool, Pick What I Played Today, Warhammer, Mental Misplay. All right, so I think I'll probably raid Caleb. Before I leave, anybody have any questions? This is probably what I would play right now for a very competitive event. For the Legacy Pit Open, I may not play the Dark Depths because I don't know how popular Moon Stompy is. But for online, I would probably play Dark Depths Tech right now because it is a problem. The Moon Stompy has killed I think it's closer than before because of Fiend Artisan. And granted, we didn't even need Dark Depths any of those 2 matches. But to be fair, we had Natural Order in one of them. And in the other one, our opponent just did not play particularly well. I think it's, let me see, I think that's how you spell it. Anybody want to correct me, they can. Is their Twitter handle. It's something along those lines. I think that's how you spell it, though. Let me Google it. I would recommend his videos. Okay, that definitely is his account. And then you can also go to, like, here's his latest tweet. So, Siler, if you want to go check out Amulet Titan content. All right. With that said, anybody have any other questions? I think there was definitely a lot of anticipation, and I think I'm pretty happy about that. For like, why are we playing Dark Depths in our Stream Decker list, right? It's because of Moon Stompy in particular, but also hits Painter. Sager's question. Is there a second one? What's the Crops Rot synergy with Artisan? Am I missing something? It's more straightforward than you think, Sadra. The synergy is Artisan in play means you can get whatever you want in your deck. And with Crop Rotation, it means we have Cradle. So it is actually very straightforward. Like, sometimes our opponent will be hell-bent on stopping our mana, which is a good game plan. And so they'll kill all the mana dorks, right? They'll let the Fiend Artisan resolve if they see you only have 2 lands. But when one of the lands can be crop rotated for against Delver, right? Like a Cradle, then you can get Endurance and stabilize the game. Just more mana for the ability. Yes, answer Kimi. That's exactly the reason. I think of note, what people will be interested is how does this map in this version against Delver, particularly. I know we spent a lot of time on Delver. Well, some time on Delver earlier. In this particular version, we keep in Karakas as the 22nd land. So the way it maps is you bring in Shriek Maw, three removal spells, 3 endurances. You board out the natural order package, board out opposition agent, board out collector Oof. So you're forced to keep in the Karakas, and I think that's okay with me. I don't mind extra lands. Also, you can blow out a lightning bolt if they target Reclaimer. Like you can rotate for fetch and fetch for double to essentially +2 lands, and that is an absolute blowout. You probably win the game on the spot if they do that. Or win on the spot if you have 2 lands and then they're trying to blow out the Reclaimer, right? Like, and that's the 3rd land, you get a Cradle. That's like, the game probably just ends on the spot. But yeah, I showed the matches against Delver earlier. This deck, as Max Gilmore, shout out again to him winning the Showcase Challenge, put it best. It's actually slower to kill, but significantly faster to be way ahead. And the reason being is because mana dorks in this version are completely broken. Like, I think the best creature in this deck is Reclaimer. I think the second best creature in this deck is Artisan. And it's actually close. I've never said that before. Like, that a creature is close to Reclaimer. I think the 3rd best creature in the deck is probably the Mana Dorks. And I think the 4th best creature is actually Wirewood now. And then Shepherd is actually kind of bad in this list. And then Visionary is probably last, but it's a necessary evil. Obviously, I'm like ignoring Endurance because it's a silver bullet, and I'm ignoring Grist. Endurance is actually broken, and I would have it behind maybe only Artisan. All right. With that said, I'll go ahead and raid Caleb. All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and hopefully we did get to see a 2020. Granted, our opponent was nice to let us do that. You really think it gives a ton of unseen value? I think it's really good against the Chalice decks, so don't get me wrong. It's like a necessary evil. It's also really good against Force of Will combo decks, like the one we just played against. Or Doomsday or Show and Tell. It's just super overrated in my opinion. It is just awful in any creature matchup. Like, I do not want to see it against Depths. Green-White Depths. I do not want to see it against Goblins. I do not want to see it against the Mirror. It's really bad, like in the creature matchups. All right. I'll go ahead and raid Caleb. And if you like what you saw today, go ahead and subscribe, preferably via either Patreon or Twitch. And then Twitch, I'll just send you the Patreon content anyways for the metagame update for those curious. But here you go. I'm gonna raid Caleb now, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I definitely had a blast. Even I know I talked really quickly, but definitely had a blast tonight.